Hi guys, welcome to NineLink. This is your host Alex. Today I'm going to talk about how to check to see if your plants actually need watering. Well, not really. Like on a lot of websites, I see a lot of people like mention, okay, if your potting mix is wet, don't water. If it's moist, water. If it's dry, definitely water. And also people mention about, make sure to keep your plant moist, not wet. And for like I ran into this problem before too. For beginners, and sometimes you wonder, what is really a definition of wet and what is definition of moist? If a thing is moist, of course it's going to be wet also. So how do you really tell the difference? So I'm just gonna go over some of the methods that I use to determine if the plant potting mix is moist, dry, or it's wet. Okay, now let's get started. Okay, the first thing you want to pay attention to is the topsoil. Now I'm gonna put these two over here just to do an example real quick. This is Cymbidium. Uh, it's a Chinese orchid. You guys, if you follow me on my channel, you should know that already. But anyway, that one is Chinese perfume tree. Okay, I'm going to just use these two for example right now. So if I look at this, I watered this one 2 days ago. I watered that just now. Now, first thing first, make sure your potting mix is suitable for your plants first. You're not gonna put a lot of clay type of soil in your potting mix and expect your potting mix to be well drained. Okay, so the first step, always, the most important step is choose your potting mix. What kind of potting mix you want to go with? If you have a very loose one like clay pebbles, you know, uh, the sphagnum moss, vermiculite, perlite, then yeah, you have a very good drainage. When you have a good drainage, it's a lot easier not to overwater because the potting mix itself can take care of the problem of overwatering. And second thing, it's very important, is the bottom of your uh, plant pots. You see, because it's winter, I use plastic, these little tray to collect waters, so it won't go all everywhere in my basement, which typically not a problem. And when I see water coming out slowly, that means okay, the water from top to the bottom. So these water come out extra water. If it's a little bit, I'm fine with it. Eventually, it will soak up by the plants and the pots. But if it's a lot, like for example, if the tray is all the way to the top, that's a water level, then I definitely dump the water away. I do not want the water to stand in there, soak in there. So that's the second rule. Okay, just remind you, first one is the potting mix. Second one is the tray down here. Now, for most of the time when you have plants outside, I typically, sometimes because I put it on my patio, I put these guys down below to protect my patio. I poke a hole on the side so if extra drainage will fall, the water will come out on the side. Instead, the whole pot, if without a tray, will sit on the patio, and sometimes it will ruin the paint and basically not good for the patio. I mean, if you have a concrete patio, it's not a big deal. Probably will get some mineral build up on the bottom. But anyway, now how do we tell after we have all those preparation? How do we tell if they need water or not? Now, first case, I'll go with the Chinese perfume tree here. Chinese perfume tree, because I topped the top layer this much with the sphagnum moss. So a good thing about sphagnum moss is when you touch it, if it's crunchy and dry, that means the top layer is dry. That does not mean it needs water. What you do is you squeeze the, here, let me move this forward real quick. You squeeze the top portion and you lift it up and you look down. And as you can see, like if I look down, it's these are peat moss down there. And I poke my finger in it, just touch it. If you feel any presence of, moist, that means it's okay. You don't need to water it. If it's a hot day, then yeah, you need to water it. If it's hot days, like some plants, you need to keep them very, very wet. See, that's the definition: wet and moist. Um, how do I define each moist is like these. I just watered yesterday, well, not 2 days ago actually. If I touch it, as you can see, if I squeeze it hard, there's you can see my finger. It still have a little bit of water left, so that's called moist. But now let's soak. Just 1 second. Let me soak this one in the water real quick. And now, if I pick it up, and you can see the water right away without being squeezed. And if you squeeze it, and that's that much of water dripping down, now that it's wet. So what you want to do most of the time is that you do not want to get your pot really wet, and also need to have a good drainage hole in the bottom. If you don't have the drainage hole and you got the whole potting mix very wet, what it does is suffocates the roots of the plants. You probably know that too. But now let's move to the case number 2. We have Cymbidium pots here without the sphagnum moss on top. I watered that just now. I want to show you before I water it, I forgot. But usually you'll see the top turns a little whitish because it's dried. And then when you water it, it turns brown. Now you can see these are all called moist. When you touch it, see, I did not water a lot. If I water a lot, this probably become very wet. So for Cymbidiums and orchids, you don't want to water too much. You just want to water it till everything is moist, and that's good. And the good thing with the peat moss and everything is when you water it, it'll soak in and divide, kind of like equilibrium out the water throughout the potting mix. So you don't want to overwater. And as you can see down here, I only have a very tiny bit water down here. So that means it's good. It's not like heavy water on the bottom. So that's how you tell the difference. And if you still need help, feel free to post it below, and I will try to help you. And like I say, it's very important, and also not many websites, they tell you, okay, this is what you look for, that it's moist. This is what you're looking for, it's wet. They all say, okay, this is wet. Don't overwater your plants. They hate wetness. They like moist. And you're like, it's being moist is a little wet too. What's the difference? So that's what's the difference. For moist stuff, when you squeeze it really hard, it has some small water comes out. Think of it as a container. If you have a big container, like my water container down here, if I have 1/4 of water in this container, and if I put half a container of potting mix in there, that's moist. It's not dry, but it has a little water in it. But if I have a full container of that water and I put potting mix in there, now that's called wet. That's really wet. Okay. Anyway, all right, that's it for today, and thank you for watching. See you later.